CMPD providing an update now on that wreck that left 2 officers hurt, another person dead. Let's listen in.
Before I start to give you some additional details.
Step over in front of those mics just a little bit.
Sure. Can you hear me good? All right. So, as you know, we're currently conducting a fatality investigation involving multiple motor vehicles. Initially this morning, officers from the North Division received a call for service in regards to recovering a vehicle that had been reported stolen. The officers were working with an individual from the company that owned the vehicle, and as you could see earlier when you were on the scene is the off-ramp from 485 Outer out onto Mount Holly Road. Officers were at that location speaking with the individual that had initially reported the location of the stolen vehicle that they were investigating and were about to recover. At that time, a motorist exited off of the 485 Outer ramp, struck both police cars, and one of the police vehicles and that motorist both ended up down an embankment along the wood line. One of the officers had to be extracted by Charlotte Fire Department and was moved by medic to a local hospital to receive treatment. That officer is conscious and alert. He has sustained some internal injuries. They're continuing to do some testing to determine the extent of those injuries, but again, he is conscious and alert and in good spirits considering the severity of the collision. The driver of the other vehicle, which was a camper or a recreational vehicle, was also removed from his vehicle and was transported by medic to a hospital for evaluation. That individual is conscious and alert, and the report is he sustained non-life-threatening injuries. We did have a second officer who was on scene. His vehicle was also struck, sustained a lesser degree of damage, and that officer was transported to an additional hospital for evaluation. The report is no serious injury to that officer. So again, what we had was 2 officers working with a reporting person regarding a stolen vehicle that was being investigated and about to be recovered when a motorist exited off of the 485 Outer Loop at Mount Holly Road, struck both police cars, and sent one police car down into an embankment. That motorist vehicle also went down into an embankment. I'll take your questions.
Has that motorist been charged with anything, or are they going to be charged with anything?
Well, again, we're very early in investigation. I don't know if you're over at the scene or not, but we still have our major crash unit there conducting the investigation. That individual is currently at the hospital receiving treatment. So as a result of the investigation, any charging determination will be made.
Are you able to say if speed was a factor at all with the driver?
Again, the investigation is currently being conducted. They have crime scene out there, just as we do with any of our significant investigations. Just as when I talk to you on homicide scenes that are non-vehicle involved, we are conducting investigation, and the investigation requires complete thoroughness. An additional factor in this investigation is as that motorist was exiting 485 and coming off onto the exit ramp, that motorist did strike the individual who was working with the police officers. That individual was pronounced on scene by medic. So this is a vehicular homicide investigation, which is why our major crash unit is currently conducting the investigation. So any information regarding charging decisions, the condition of anybody that was transported from the scene, it is premature for me to give you that information because the investigation is incomplete, so those decisions have not been made yet. And the individual that was in the vehicle that struck the officers and struck our reporting person is still at a hospital receiving treatment. The officer that was in the vehicle that went down the embankment is still at the hospital receiving treatment. And the other officer, again at this point, minor injury has been assessed and released from the hospital. So the extent of injuries, the conditions of anybody that was transported from the scene is still yet to be determined. But this is a vehicular homicide investigation, so our major crash unit is there with our crime scene unit, and the thoroughness that will be utilized in this investigation is the same as when I talk to any of you gentlemen or ladies, in the middle of the night. we're dealing with a significant event. We're dealing with multiple people injured, and most importantly, we are dealing with the loss of life. And again, that does not just impact that one individual. That doesn't impact their immediate family members, their friends, or their coworkers. That affects a much wider circle. That certainly affects the wider Charlotte community. That affects all of us. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you come down these roads, either drive in to or from work on Mount Holly Road or to or from work on 485. You know, I've got kids of my own, and some of them are learning how to drive, and I express to them that, you know, driving a vehicle is a serious endeavor. You know, we do it for years and years and years, and we take this for granted. But operating a motor vehicle is not a right. You know, it is something we have to take seriously. We have to be aware of ourselves. We have to be aware of people around us. It takes a split second of looking in one direction versus another to not realize that conditions are changing. And so I can't tell you what all the conditions were or what the list of factors that led to this unfortunate incident was, but I can assure you that the major crash unit and our crime scene unit will be extremely thorough in trying to capture this moment in time to ensure that, to the extent that we can provide the victim justice, that we are extremely thorough. Nobody that's involved in a situation like this walks away unaffected by it. Whether you were in a vehicle that was struck, whether you were someone that was injured, whether you just know somebody that was involved in this impacts multiple people. And so it is a much more significant event than we may on the surface believe it to be just by reading a headline.
Do we know the age of the driver?
I don't have that information right now, sir. No, sir.
And can you tell me the location where they were doing their investigation?
So they were on the side of the road. They were on the shoulder of the off-ramp from 485 Outer onto Mount Holly Road. So the vehicle that they were recovering was on the shoulder of the road. The reporting person and the officers were on the shoulder of the road. Both of the officers were inside their vehicle. The individual who was struck and killed was outside of the vehicle speaking to one of the officers.
So the person who was killed was the person who was reporting?
Yes, that's correct. So the person that had called 911 to say, you know, our vehicle is here, it was stolen, we have information to provide you in regards to this investigation, is here. That person is speaking to police officers who are working that investigation with him when he was struck and killed during the collision caused by the motorist exiting 485 onto the ramp to Mount Holly Road.
I know the investigation is still early, but how did the person discover that car was there? Was he riding around and he saw the car, or do you know anything like that?
I don't have that information at this time. I can tell you that we received a call for service. That call for service originated in North Division, so we had North Division officers who were on scene conducting the investigation. The location of the collision is just over the border into Freedom Division, but it was North Division officers who had received a call for service in regards to attempting to locate the stolen vehicle that this individual believed that they had located, as well as some additional information related to that investigation. So he was in the process of speaking and giving information to the officers, and they're off the side of the road on the shoulder when the motorist exits 485 on the ramp and strikes both police cars and strikes that individual. He's standing on the shoulder.
One more question. Since that ramp is still open.
All right, you've been listening to this CMPD press conference after 2 officers were hurt, 1 person killed. Let's take a look at where this all happened. This is the off-ramp of 485 Outer to Mount Holly Road. This all happened. The vehicles were all on the shoulder of the off-ramp. A person called to report a stolen vehicle. That person was on the shoulder with officers. That person was ultimately killed in this crash. Another vehicle, struck both police cars and that vehicle with a person who reported the stolen vehicle inside. They went down an embankment. We're being told 1 officer conscious and alert in the hospital. The other officer was checked out and released. The driver that struck these vehicles was transported to the hospital as well. Obviously, this is a developing story, and we'll have much more for you throughout the day right here on WCNC Charlotte. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.